Han Li, who was at the mid-nascent soul stage, was looked down upon by an old devil from the Yin Luo sect for hailing from Tianan. This arch-nemesis was at the late nascent soul stage. Han Li wasn't afraid to challenge him in a fight. But as for the current situation, mid-stage Han Li was inexplicably trapped on Kunwu Mountain, within some kind of space. Was he really going to be trapped here until he died? Facing the formation's restrictions, he had still studied some peculiar ancient formations extensively. At first, he naturally wasn't afraid. But before long, Han Li felt that something was terribly wrong, because he couldn't even determine if everything here was an illusion or not. All he knew was that no matter how long he flew, what appeared before him was always the exact same scene. As for his bright-sight spirit eyes ability, he had used it long ago, but he hadn't discovered the slightest anomaly. As for using his flying sword and other magic treasures to attack, he had tried them all. The result was that each attack would travel unimpeded for a great distance, and then dissipate into nothing. He was completely unable to hit anything solid. This being the case, even his sharpest attacks were useless. After drifting aimlessly in this space for so long, the fruitless Han Li finally stopped. He narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment, then suddenly sat down cross-legged. He gently closed his eyes. In his mind, he began to recall all the various ancient formations he had ever studied in his life, mulling them over carefully one by one, trying to see if he could find a similar setup, and thus find a flaw to break out. Time passed by slowly. Han Li's body remained completely still, just like a wooden statue. After an unknown amount of time had passed, Han Li's expression finally shifted. He slowly opened his eyes, his gaze falling upon the colorful clouds below the temple. So, that's how it is. Just as I thought. A strange glint appeared in Han Li's eyes, as he muttered softly to himself. Han Li slowly stood up. With one hand, he made a grabbing motion through the air toward a nearby red cloud. Instantly, a large, azure hand materialized out of thin air, firmly grasping the colorful cloud. A deep, muffled sound rang out. Han Li stared at the large hand. His hands formed a strange seal, and he began chanting under his breath. After the large hand trembled, its 5 fingers suddenly closed shut, tightly clenching the red cloud in its palm. A brilliant azure light erupted. In an instant, the hand transformed into a dazzling orb of light. It was blindingly bright. But Han Li then opened his mouth and spat out a wisp of azure flame. It drifted out and gently coiled around the orb of light. Then, roaring flames quickly engulfed the orb, enveloping it completely. Only then did Han Li release the hand seal. He stared at the ball of light with a blank expression, saying nothing. After an unknown amount of time, the corner of Han Li's mouth twitched. He suddenly flicked his sleeve towards the flame in the air. A flash of radiant light shot out. The flame was immediately extinguished, revealing a pale red, round bead. It seems I wasn't wrong. Such a brilliant technique for concealing and reshaping an object. Indeed, only ancient cultivators could possess such a skill. However, cultivators who understood this kind of formation, there were probably only a few, even in ancient times. It's a good thing that in the ancient text Din Ryan gifted me for the new year, there was a description of a similar seal. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have known how to break this formation. It seems I'll have to strengthen the power of the mausoleum in the future. If it can be continuously used for another 100 years or so, the minking pupils should also be able to see through it. This must be some kind of advanced illusion technique. Han Li sighed, to think that in his own tomb, he was now unable to see through this kind of formation. He looked rather frustrated. He no longer paid any mind to the motionless red bead floating in the air. His gaze swept around the area, then locked onto a wisp of blue cloud. He reached out with a large hand to grab it, and shot another plume of flame towards it. This time, the cloud of mist was instantly reduced to nothing in the flames. Han Li's expression showed no change. He immediately reached for another source of blue mist. After failing twice in a row, he finally succeeded in refining a blue bead. After spending the better part of half a day like this, he had refined a yellow, a cyan, and a gold bead, 3 in total. Then, Han Li solemnly began. He beckoned to the beads. The beads, which had been floating nearby, immediately shot towards him. Then, with a flurry of movements from his 10 fingers, he guided them. The beads began to slowly revolve around him, spinning faster and faster, gradually forming a 5-colored ring. The ring shimmered with points of spiritual light, looking exceptionally mysterious. Go! Han Li's slender eyebrows raised. With a low cry, the movements of his 10 fingers ceased. The 5-colored ring disintegrated. The beads then followed a profound and swift trajectory, suddenly shooting outwards in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the beads flew to 5 seemingly unrelated locations. They whirled around endlessly, and at the same time, began to pulse bizarrely. As they transformed, The moment Han Li narrowed his eyes, with a series of loud rumbles, the 5 beads exploded simultaneously. 5 orbs of light, each a different color, then appeared, flashing with a blinding light. It was as if 5 extra, brilliant suns had appeared in the space. Even Han Li instinctively squinted, not daring to look directly at the 5 piercing rays. And just as the 5 lights converged, in the instant they filled the entire space. The surrounding scenery shifted. Then, with a blur before his eyes, Han Li suddenly found himself on a familiar stone street, and not far away was the very same giant rock where they had first seen the spirit herb growing. Fellow Taoist Han, brother Han. The surprised cries of a man and a woman sounded beside Han Li. Han Li glanced over, and saw that Bai Yao Yi and her elderly father had also appeared beside him, just a short distance away. Both of them looked utterly exhausted, but their faces were now filled with joy and surprise. So, you've both escaped as well? Han Li said calmly. Brother Han, it was you who broke this strange restriction, wasn't it? I have never seen such a terrifying formation. I honestly thought we were going to be trapped in there until we died, the elderly father said, the fear still lingering in his voice. Clearly, this elder of the Ninth Serenity sect had suffered greatly under that bizarre restriction. It seemed both his magic power and his spirit were severely damaged. My situation was much the same as my father's. I was completely helpless inside that restriction. We owe it all to you for breaking the formation, Brother Han, Bai Yao Yi said with a wry smile, a hint of gratitude on her beautiful face. It was nothing. I just happened to have heard of a similar restriction before, which is how I was able to break it. This kind of ancient restriction is indeed a very rare type. The bamboo spirit grass that Brother Bu took, if I'm not mistaken, it must have been an illusion created by some magical artifact. Fellow Taoist, I'm afraid you've been thoroughly deceived, Han Li said with a dark chuckle. An illusion? No way. Back then, I clearly... What is this? The robed elder was stunned by Han Li's words. He said, half believing and half doubting. At the same time, he took a jade box from his storage pouch. There were no spirit herbs inside. Instead, there was a very ordinary jade ruyi. The elder was instantly dumbfounded. Actually, the moment the 3 of us stepped onto that giant rock, we had already fallen for this restriction's illusion. When you picked the spirit herb, fellow Taoist, you merely triggered the most powerful restriction of this formation. Fellow Taoist, why don't you take another look over there? His eyes flashed, and he pointed casually towards the giant rock. The elder and Bai Yao Yi looked over upon hearing this. They saw that on top of the giant rock, there was indeed a spirit herb, growing a cluster of purple berries. These ancient cultivators are truly insidious. To think they would set up such a sinister trap here. What on earth were they thinking? The elder immediately became furious. Bai Yao's mouth was slightly agape, a look of utter astonishment on his face. There's no need to be surprised, you two. This kind of ancient restriction was originally designed to require a magical artifact to be actively touched by the person entering the formation. In order to be fully activated, it's only natural that its power would manifest in this way. And I've only temporarily broken this restriction. I haven't destroyed it completely, Han Li said calmly. This mineral mountain doesn't feel like a mountain of immortal spirits. It's more like a den of dragons and tigers. The elder, seeing the spirit herb he almost had disappear, was naturally filled with resentment. We'll have to be more careful from now on. This is no ordinary ruin of an ancient cultivator. Is there something strange going on? It's best not to act rashly, lest we bring trouble upon ourselves. This time, I was fortunate enough to be able to break this formation, but next time, I won't be so confident. Do you fellow Taoists understand what I mean? Han Li's eyes flickered. His voice deepened slightly, turning cold. This old one won't act so rashly again in the future. The old man gave a couple of awkward, dry laughs. This time, in pursuit of the spirit grass. He really was a bit too reckless. Bai Yao Yi also nodded thoughtfully. Since you fellow Taoists understand, let's go. The sounds from the mountain have stopped. We've been delayed for a few days. The others may have already reached the summit. Han Li glanced toward the mountain top. Then, taking the lead, he proceeded along the stone steps once more. Bai Yao Yi and the old man naturally followed close behind. This time, they didn't encounter any more trouble. Several hours later, the 3 of them finally flew past several huge mountain ridges. They finally arrived at the stone pavilion where the Yi family cultivators had entered that day. Back then, Xiang Jili had also vanished into thin air right here. Seeing the stone pavilion to the side, the old man and Bai Yao Yi hadn't yet reacted. But Han Li let out a soft sound of surprise. He suddenly stared at a spot on the ground outside the pavilion, and stopped in his tracks. Seeing this, the other 2 couldn't help but follow his gaze. As a result, they also noticed something unusual. On that patch of soft ground, there was a single, faint footprint. If you didn't look carefully, it would be very easy to miss. So, other cultivators have been here. Bai Yaoyu let out a soft breath. Her lips slightly parted. She said, her fine brows furrowed. It's not just that. Take another look at those rocks over there. After the old man murmured to himself, he also glanced toward a certain boulder beside the stone pavilion, and said, and on top of this boulder, there was a gash, several feet long, deep yet thin. A single look revealed it was a mark left by an extremely powerful sword Che. This was precisely the mark from when the Yi family's seventh uncle flew past, the yellow sword Che, that he had unintentionally left here. This sword mark is also new. It seems there are not only people here, but they also seem to have fought with something. Could it be that silver-red yaksha? Bai Yaoyi said, her beautiful eyes shifting. Perhaps. It looks like those people also went up along the stone steps. In that case, it's perfect. Someone is clearing the path for us. We can save ourselves some trouble. Han Li, however, spoke with unusual calm. When the elderly man heard this, he chuckled. Just as he was about to say something, a white light suddenly flashed on a nearby glowing tree, and a pale white figure shot out from within it. Because the position where the figure appeared was directly facing Han Li, the three of them were, of course, seen clearly. As a result, Han Li and Bai Yaoyi were immediately overcome with joyful surprise. The two of them never would have imagined that the exit they were looking for was actually right under their noses. However, the moment the old man with the compound surname saw this white figure, his expression changed drastically. The five-child concentric demon, it's an incarnation of old demon Qian. The demon child. Han Li was taken aback by these words, although he felt that the name five-child concentric demon sounded familiar, as if he'd heard it somewhere before. For a moment, he couldn't recall who this so-called old demon Qian was, but when Bai Yaoyi heard this, her face suddenly turned deathly pale, and just at that moment, a series of soft thuds sounded out. From that white point of light, from more identical figures emerged. 5 faint, ethereal white figures stood side by side in a row. Their expressions were wooden, as their gazes fell upon Han Li and the other two across from them, the great elder of the Yin Luo sect. Seeing the 5 figures' bizarre appearance, Han Li finally remembered who he was, and his expression instantly turned grim. So, it's fellow Taoist Fu. What a coincidence? No wonder my men couldn't find you anywhere. It turns out you'd already entered this place ahead of us, and this fairy, with such a peculiar style of dress. Could she be a cultivator from the Northern Leaf Small G Temple? And I believe you are Madame Liu of Igui Palace. We could be considered old acquaintances. As for the last one, hey, could he be the renowned Han Zhu from Tianan? Han Zhu, you really made my sect, and the people from the Azure Saint Palace searched long and hard for you. Elder Qian's voice was first filled with delight, which then turned into a wild, gleeful laughter. Hearing the words about Han Li and Tianan, the elder surnamed Fu and Bai Yaoyu both showed a hint of surprise, glancing at Han Li with confusion. But Han Li just stared at the 5 white figures in the distance, his expression dark and silent. You have to understand, he had personally killed a mid-nascent soul stage elder of the Yin Luo sect. He had even snatched one of their sect's ultimate treasures, the ghostly Luo banner. Naturally, there was no longer any room for talk of burying the hatchet. Besides, he had originally planned on getting something from the Yin Luo sect anyway. The method to break the soul sealing curse, and this technique, within the Yin Luo sect, was only known to the sect master and the great elder standing before him. Because of this, Han Li had already been planning, after this matter was settled, to go after the Yin Luo sect, and now, to have unexpectedly run into him here. Han Li was caught completely off guard. He was already secretly contemplating the possibility of a head-on confrontation right here. After all, both of them were high-ranking and powerful figures in the Yin Luo sect. The opportunity to find either of them alone was truly rare, and he had fought a treacherous battle against the Silver Red Leaf, which was comparable to a late-stage Nascent Soul Cultivator, although that monster itself didn't have any magical treasures, and was under some kind of restriction, which was why he was almost able to kill it. But he knew that at the time, he hadn't used all of his abilities either. He had held back that humanoid puppet, and didn't use it to deal with the Nascent Soul Cultivator before him. He was fairly confident he could defeat a late-stage demonic cultivator. Besides, regarding the opponent's 5 children concentric demons, even though its reputation was formidable, his evil-warding divine lightning was still incredibly effective at suppressing demonic techniques. Just as these thoughts flashed through Han Li's mind like lightning, as he repeatedly weighed the pros and cons Among the 5 white figures in the distance, the one in the center suddenly formed a hand seal. His body flashed with a hazy gray light, and then, a cultivator shrouded in a gray robe suddenly emerged from within the white figure. The strangeness of his appearance made him seem like a phantom. The gray-robed cultivator's face was obscured by a faint layer of gray mist, making it impossible to see his features clearly. But his slightly graying hairline and attire clearly indicated he was an elderly man of considerable age. Old Demon Qian's true body had actually separated from the 5 demon children and revealed itself directly. At this, it wasn't just Han Li. Even the Fu surnamed elder and Bai Yaoyu became highly vigilant. They stared intently at the old demon without blinking, wanting to see what this Yin Luosec's great elder was planning to do. But the old demon didn't say a word. Instead, he slapped his waist with one hand, and a small, ink-black banner appeared in his hand. Then, he gave it a gentle wave in the direction of Han Li and the other 2. The elder's expression changed drastically. One hand immediately gripped a treasure. A brilliant light erupted from around Bai Yaoyu, instantly enveloping her figure in a protective spiritual aura. Instead, there was only a flicker in his eyes. He made no other move, but the look on his face grew increasingly cold. Strange, very strange. That small banner merely flashed with a black light, and nothing unusual happened. This made old Demon Chen mutter to himself nonstop. He seemed somewhat astonished. Brother Chan, what is the meaning of this? Are you planning to make a move with your Geluo banner? Do you intend to start a war between our 2 sects? Although the Fu surnamed elder was extremely wary of old Demon Chan, their side had 3 nascent soul cultivators, specifically mid-stage ones. Furthermore, Han Li's divine powers were profound and unfathomable, so they weren't too afraid of a war between the 2 sects. I have no interest in that. I, Chan, simply have some business with this fellow Taoist Han that needs to be settled. This doesn't concern the 2 of you. If you are willing to leave this place now, I, Chan, will absolutely not make things difficult for you. After old Demon Qian's gaze swept across the 3 of them, he said calmly, Fellow Taoist Chan, your words are exactly what I was thinking. I, Han, have also long heard of the great fame of the 5 child-concentric demons. I was just thinking I'd like to spar with you. Han Li started to laugh. He nonchalantly agreed right away. Hearing what the 2 of them said, the Fusar named elder and Bai Yaoyu looked at each other in dismay. Old Demon Chan was also a bit surprised. His icy gaze circled Han Li several times. This, Brother Chan, although I know that fellow Taoist Han has some history with your esteemed sect, acting so rashly here seems a bit inappropriate. Don't you want to explore this mountain first, Brother Chan? The Fusar named elder tried to persuade him with a frown. It wasn't that he truly wanted to help Han Li. It was just that this mineral mountain looked extremely dangerous. He had finally found a capable ally, so naturally, he didn't want any accidents to happen just like that. Besides, only by keeping Han Li on his side could he avoid being alone and outnumbered. Don't worry about this old devil Chan suddenly turning hostile and attacking. I, Chan, will of course pursue this matter in my lifetime. But this fellow Taoist Han is also someone my sect has been searching for a long time. We can't just let him go like this. Let me settle this with fellow Taoist Han first, and then we'll talk. What? Does Brother Fu intend to interfere in this matter? Old Devil Chen let out a cold laugh. Outside of this mountain, the grudge between you, Brother Chan, and fellow Taoist Han, I will not interfere. But in this place, the 3 of us still need to join forces to explore this mountain. I'm afraid we can't let you have your way. Brother Chan, the beautiful Bai Yaoyan, glanced around for a moment, then spoke with determination. For this woman, she was also afraid of losing a great asset like Han Li, and thus putting herself in danger on this mountain. Of course, the most important thing was, this woman and the elder with the Fu surname had witnessed the extent of Han Li's power. They didn't really believe that Han Li was truly afraid of old Devil Chan. Otherwise, whether they would still have said these things would be another matter entirely. Faced with the surprisingly firm stance from the elder and Bai Yaoyan, a glint flashed in the gray-robed man's eyes. With a single glance, his gaze seemed as if it could pierce straight into one's very soul. But neither the elder with the compound surname nor Bai Yaoyan were ordinary cultivators. Although they were secretly alarmed, their faces showed not the slightest trace of fear. For the sake of you to fellow Taoists, it's not that I can't set this matter aside for a moment. However, a treasure of my sect has ended up in this man's possession. He must hand it over to me right now. Otherwise, even if it means greatly expending my vital energy today, I will have no choice but to fight the 3 of you. Old Devil Chan said with a calm, steely gaze. Are you referring to that Gui Luo banner? Han Li let out a laugh. and said bluntly, "Precisely that item. Back then, Elder Shy of my sect fell and perished in the heavenly south. That banner should be in your possession now. Fellow Taoist, if you return this item now, I can let you off the hook for the time being." Old Devil Chan said in a low voice, "Let you off the hook? You've got some nerve. Truly audacious. I can return the Gui Luo banner to you, but there is one condition. I wonder if Senior Chan is willing to hear it." After a moment of silence, Han Li suddenly raised his hand toward the sky. A sneer appeared on his lips as he said, "A condition? You killed this sect's fourth elder, took our sect's heirloom treasure, and you still dare to state conditions before me. Do you really think I wouldn't dare to take your life?" Old Devil Chin laughed out of extreme anger. The 5 white shadows behind him flickered. They all drifted forward at the same time, and instantly stood in front of Old Devil Chan. The atmosphere immediately became tense. The old man surnamed Fu at the side was greatly astonished to hear this. A peculiar look appeared on his face. The matter of the Yin Luo sect's fourth elder disappearing for no reason, as one of the 10 great sects of the demonic path, the 9 Nether sect naturally knew something about it. But the old man never would have thought that this demonic cultivator, who had quite a reputation in the demonic path, had actually died at Han Li's hands. It seemed that even the Yin Luo sect's famous Gui Luo banner had also fallen into his hands. No wonder this old Devil Chan, even knowing that now isn't the best time for a fight, was still unwilling to let this fellow Taoist Han off easily. As for Han Li hiding his background and origins, the fact that he was a cultivator from Tianan and not from overseas was hardly worth mentioning. "Hemph, return it to your esteemed sect. You make it sound so easy. Senior Chan, I wonder about your sect's fourth elder. Why did he come to our Tianan for no reason at all, and even launch a sneak attack on me? Do you think I would hand over this banner so easily?" Han Li's expression darkened, and he spoke in a grim tone. "Why the 4 elders went to Tianan, and how they met their end at your hands, this old man doesn't care, nor am I interested in knowing. But our sect's ancestral treasure, I must take it back. Otherwise, what face would our Yin Luo sect have left?" The old devil said resolutely. "So, you're saying there's no room for negotiation at all, and you have no intention of hearing my terms?" Han Li's pupils contracted, revealing an extremely grim expression. "Ha, terms? If you were a grand elder of one of the 10 great sects, perhaps this old man might listen to what you have to say. But a mere cultivator from Tianan like you, are you even worthy of negotiating terms with me?" Old Devil Chan tilted his head back and laughed wildly at the sky. A terrifying, baleful aura suddenly erupted from his body. Then, with a flicker of his figure, he vanished into a white shadow, disappearing without a trace. The 5 white shadows instantly erupted in a brilliant gray light. Their originally lifeless eyes, in the blink of an eye, revealed a bloodthirsty fanaticism. They instantly became extremely dangerous. Crap, I almost forgot. This old devil cultivates the drowning emotions heaven-severing grand method. This technique prizes acting on impulse above all else. Our earlier threats had the opposite effect. It backfired and enraged this old devil. Seeing old devil Qian's frenzied state, the old man surnamed Fu suddenly remembered something, and said with instant regret. Hearing this, Bai Yaoyi furrowed her delicate brows slightly, but with no time to think, she raised a hand, and an ice crystal flying dagger shot into the air, immediately transforming into a streak of white light that began to circle above her head. Han Li's expression remained calm, but his eyes narrowed. A hand hidden within his embroidered robe moved slightly, and the triflame fan bizarrely appeared in his grasp. His other hand quietly came to rest on his storage pouch, while his spiritual sense instantly locked onto the humanoid puppets. He had already decided, the moment the fight broke out, while the old devil was occupied by the old man and by Yaoyi, when it involved some of the Ians, they would immediately unleash all their killing moves, aiming to critically injure the opponent in an instant. Even if they couldn't take their life on the spot, they had to damage their cultivation level. This was to prepare for the next time, to make a move against this great elder of the Ying Luo sect, forcefully creating the opportunity. After all, Nangong Wan's wine soul curse was something Han Li hadn't forgotten for a single moment. Only by obtaining the true method to break the curse could he finally be at ease, even if it meant he could no longer establish himself in the Great Jin, and would be hunted day and night by the Ying Luo sect's cultivators. He was willing to pay the price. At that moment, from the 5 devils' son's mouth, a strange wailing sound emerged. Then, his figure instantly became incredibly agile. From a distance, the white figure looked like 5 wisps of light smoke, swaying gently. Then, with an unusual movement, he was about to pounce down viciously, but right at that moment, on the mist of light, from the spot where the white figure had emerged, a deafening explosion suddenly erupted. A massive, blinding ball of fluorescent light burst forth. The light was incredibly dazzling. Before Han Li and the others could figure out what was going on, whooshing sounds came from within the light, followed by streaks of light of various colors packed tightly together, shooting out from within. Then, after circling once, the streaks of light all came to a halt. Numerous figures were revealed nearby. What happened? Fellow Taoists, why are you all in such a panic? The Chen old demon asked in surprise. The white figure, which had been in an attack stance, flickered and returned to its original position. It then abruptly turned around, taking a defensive stance, because the cultivators who flew out from the mist of light, the cultivators who emerged, although every one of them looked extremely disheveled, not a single one was below the Yuanying stage. Even if the old devil is arrogant, he would never dare to treat this lightly. Besides, the sound of the explosion coming from the light just now gave him a vague, bad feeling. Brother Qian's abilities are truly astonishing. He actually arrived here even a step ahead of us. Huh, isn't that fellow Taoist Fu from the Nine Nether sect? And these two are these cultivators. They're actually the 4 elders of Dushing Men and 5 other Nascent Soul cultivators. That Zhenren Si-san was also sneaking around among them. But when Hua Tianqi saw Han Li's group of 3, he was the first to show his surprise. So, it's brother Hua. What a coincidence? But what exactly happened with that explosion just now? The elderly man surnamed Fu, however, was on edge about the matter. He couldn't be bothered with explanations. He also hurriedly asked, HMPH, we were about to ask you fellow Taoists the same thing. Since you all arrived here before us, I assume the illusion formation outside was set up by you. Just now, the formation exploded, blocking the passage again. I suppose that was also part of your arrangement. A large man among the Nascent Soul cultivators said with a cold snort. Hearing this, the expressions of the others also changed slightly. They stared at Han Li's group with unfriendly expressions. Fellow Taoists, please don't misunderstand. When we arrived, there were already other cultivators here. The illusion formation you're talking about has absolutely nothing to do with the 3 of us. You suffered a great loss. Are you trying to take your anger out on us? Hearing this, the elderly man surnamed Fu's expression darkened, and he replied bluntly, in a complicated situation like this, one cannot afford to show weakness. Otherwise, you'll thus be seen as a pushover, making it easy for others to gang up on you. There's someone else here. At this, not only were the 4 elders of Dushing Men stunned, even the old devil was taken by surprise. The 3 of us were transported here by an ancient formation, arriving at this place by accident. At that time, we heard the sound of a barrier breaking on the mountain, but we were later trapped by a restriction for several days. So, we couldn't find those people in time. I believe the calamity you all speak of must be related to this group of people. The elder with the compound surname was no ordinary person. In just a few words, he had mostly explained the situation. Is that so? The large man had a troubled expression. The other cultivators also became half convinced, half skeptical. My sworn brother is an enforcement elder of the Nine Nether sect. He would never, on a matter as clear as this, deceive us. Besides, if the Nine Nether sect had really broken this seal, then fellow Taoist Gu of the Nine Nether sect would have surely come here in person. Hua Tianqi, who was leading the group, said with a composed look, seemingly believing the elder's words completely. That is also true. The large man thought for a moment and felt it was reasonable. However, when you all flew in just now, something seemed off between the 3 of you and the old devil. Could it be that you, fellow Taoist, have offended the old devil in some way? Hua Tianqi's eyes shifted slightly. He suddenly raised this question. After all, the tense situation, us now, between Han Li's group of 3 and the old devil, the confrontational scene, had been seen clearly by the other cultivators. At this, a hint of hesitation appeared on the elder's face, just as the elder with the compound surname was secretly pondering how to answer this question. Meanwhile, in a tent hall somewhere on the upper part of Kunwu Mountain, the large-headed man held a small, golden-yellow hammer. With a single wave, a silver-white arc of lightning shot out, instantly striking a stone tiger puppet that was approaching him, smashing it to pieces. Behind him were several other cultivators. They were also driving their respective magic treasures, frantically attacking the various stone puppets before them. These puppets all took the form of walking beasts and flying birds. Not only are their bodies incredibly hard, but they can also cast various simple spells. Their power is truly unusual. Through the main hall, they poured out furiously from the 4 surrounding corridors, seeming utterly endless. But these family cultivators all remained calm. They just silently activated their magical treasures, all seeming to have a plan. After a short while, A loud bang suddenly echoed from a distance on one side. The corridor over there had completely collapsed. The stone puppets from that direction immediately stopped pouring out. Hearing this, the Yi family cultivators all showed a hint of joy on their faces. Before long, the corridors in the other three directions also collapsed one by one with a loud rumble. With no new puppets joining the fray, the remaining puppets in the hall were quickly dealt with by the Yi family members. In a matter of moments, they were all swept away. What the hell are these things? They don't seem like any modern puppets. Only then did the Yi family members finally relax. They took out spirit stones and sat down cross-legged on the spot. Although this encounter didn't seem too dangerous, they had been channeling their magical treasures at full power for a long time, which had consumed a great deal of their magical energy. Just then, from the last corridor to be destroyed, a ray of light shot out. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before them. The brilliant light faded, revealing the white-robed scholar. Elder Han, you were right. At the end of each of those corridors is a side hall. All of those puppets were coming from inside them. I followed the method you mentioned to break the seals and enter. I've destroyed the central hubs in all of the side halls. The scholar said with a smile to one of the men. It's nothing. I happened to learn of this great puppet formation's origin years ago, when I read about it in an ancient text. That's how I knew how to deal with it. Otherwise, if we had just stubbornly held our ground here, even with a heaven-defying cultivation level, we would have been worn down to death. The one who replied was none other than the impassive Gumo. Ha 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 ha. It seems my insistence on waiting for Elder Han to arrive was indeed very useful. I'm afraid I'll need to rely on you much more in the future, the scholar said with a pleasant expression. Great Elder, you're too kind. Even if you hadn't said that, I, Han, would still have done my utmost. The corner of his mouth curled up as he uttered a polite remark nonchalantly. The scholar nodded, greatly satisfied. At that moment, the big-headed strange man to the side suddenly let out a hey, laughed, and said, by my calculations, within the changing formation, the trap we set should have been triggered by now. If we're lucky, it might be able to buy our you family some more time. Indeed, someone should have tried to break through the formation by now. As soon as someone enters the formation, they will naturally trigger this trap, causing the formation to self-destruct in a very short time. However, the obstruction caused by this self-destruction will be gone in 5 or 6 days at most. The entrance will become accessible again. Besides, even without this matter, after a while longer, the entire seal will begin to loosen anyway, the scholar said with a calm expression. It's still a long time from when the seal starts weakening to when it truly collapses. That's enough time for us to retrieve the treasure. But as for us, where on Kunwu Mountain are we now? We should be close to the main structure of the mountain, right? The big-headed strange man asked the scholar. We should be about there. However, the restrictions we're encountering are becoming more and more frequent. This means we're approaching Kunwu Mountain's vital area, the scholar, after some thought, said slowly. That's good, but there is one other troublesome matter. That silver-red leaf eagle followed behind, his spirit unsettled. What exactly is he up to? Is he planning to launch a sneak attack on us when he gets the chance? After the big-headed strange man said this, like neat show, he looked towards the entrance at the other end of the great hall. Glancing over, a hint of concern appeared on his face. Hearing this, the other few people also subconsciously looked over as well, but that area was completely empty, as if there was nothing there at all. But all the Yi family cultivators knew very well that somewhere over there, that yin corpse worm, in all likelihood, was watching them from afar with its concealment technique. This made the cultivators feel extremely uneasy for a moment. If it weren't for the 2 Nascent Soul late-stage cultivators accompanying the other cultivators, they really wouldn't dare to be targeted by such a high-level monster, and would have probably scattered in panic by now. This flying corpse is indeed quite troublesome. If time allowed, with my and 7th uncle's abilities, it wouldn't be impossible to devise a plan to heavily injure it, or even kill this beast. But unfortunately, we are short on time. We must race against the clock. Under these circumstances, rashly trying to drive it away might instead provoke its wrath. For now, we can only see if there's a place up ahead where we can use some kind of restrictive spell to lure it in, and take the opportunity to trap this monster to its death. After pondering for a moment, the scholar could only say this. When the others heard this, most of them thought it made sense, and they all nodded in agreement. After all, relying on that yin corpse worm's masterful escaping arts, trying to get rid of it with their own strength, was truly an unlikely scenario. So, after the group recovered some of their magical power, they immediately walked out of the stone hall and appeared at the exit. But the Yi family cultivators Their vision suddenly cleared. After briefly surveying the scene ahead, they were all stunned into silence. Before them appeared a vast area, with more than 10 stone paths of various sizes, winding over the undulating terrain, each leading to a different part of the mountain. But annoyingly, the far end of every stone path was shrouded in the same white mist. It was impossible to tell where the end of each path led. How could this not leave the Yi family members dumbfounded? What should we do now? Even if we each take one and explore a different path, we'd never be able to check them all. An old man sighed, turning to the scholar with a wry smile. Don't worry. This means we have already entered the core region of Kunwu Mountain. That's why there are so many branching paths. This should be a good thing. Splitting up is definitely not an option. If our numbers are spread too thin, we won't even be able to protect ourselves. As for which path we should take, let's go to that platform over there first and see if there are any markings or signs. The scholar truly lived up to his title as the Yi family's great elder. He quickly calmed down and came up with a plan. The platform he pointed to was a place from which all the paths seemed to originate, a white jade plaza. It was only a short distance away from them, and it looked enormous. Hearing the scholar's words, the others had no better ideas, so they could only agree to check out the plaza first, and so, the group summoned their light shields to fly, heading straight for it. But just as everyone took to the air, they all came tumbling down with a series of thuds. A no-fly zone. They've actually set up this kind of restriction here. The big-headed man cried out. Fortunately, the Yi family cultivators hadn't flown high. Although they were in a sorry state, no one was injured. But it also filled everyone with dread. Although the restrictions of the Mirror of Emptiness were present, greatly limiting their movements, it also showed that they had truly set foot in a vital area of Kunwu Mountain. So, fellow Taoist Han is actually from Tianan. Ghost Dao cultivators are quite rare in our great Jin, but no matter the reason, since you, fellow Taoist, killed an elder of the Yin Luo sect, and even took the Ghost Luo banner, this feud will not be easy to resolve. Nearby, Hua Tianchi said with a gasp. He had just heard the general account from the compound surnamed elder, and was truly shocked in his heart. The others who didn't know were also thrown into a commotion, all of them sizing up Han Li a few more times with strange expressions. To them, Tianan was frankly a bit too remote. In the eyes of the great Jin cultivation world, it was a place hardly worth mentioning. For the person before them to have actually come from there, and to have also provoked the Yin Luo sect, how could this not make most of them a little curious? I was merely acting in self-defense. If the Yin Luo sect elder hadn't taken the initiative to cause me trouble, how would I, Han, have encountered this matter? Han Li said with an indifferent expression. In any case, the three of you, fellow Taoists, have been here for a while. Then you should know where this mountain is, right? That Nascent Soul stage burly man seemed to be uninterested in the matter between Han Li and old Devil Chan. Not in the least. Instead, he asked somewhat impatiently, I do know a little about that. This place is your great Jin's legendary Kunwu Immortal Mountain. Han Li's eyes flickered as he impassively repeated, Kunwu Mountain, model. Those Nascent Soul cultivators were stunned for a moment, and then they gasped in shock. When old Devil Chan heard this, he was equally shocked and his expression turned grim. The four elders, however, already knew about this. At this moment, they simply exchanged a glance. In that case, someone has already gotten ahead of us. We just don't know how many cultivators there are, or which faction they belong to. But since they were able to break such a powerful seal, those people's strength must be extraordinary. Brother Chan, no matter what conflict you and fellow Taoist Han have, now is not the time for infighting. Why don't we all join forces, drive that group out of this mountain, and then we can each rely on our own fate to divide the treasures of the Mineral Mountain. How about it? As for the grudge between you and fellow Taoist Han, you can find another chance to settle it after we've left this mountain. Hua Tianchi stroked his chin, his gaze sweeping over a few figures in white as he proposed the alliance. Upon hearing this, old Devil Chan fell silent. Meanwhile, when Si Sangenren and the burly man's group of 5 heard this, they were all swayed by the idea. Their lips barely moved as they began to discuss it via sound transmission. Seeing this, Din Fu, Elder Din, and Bai Yaoyu breathed a sigh of relief. Although they were confident that together, they wouldn't lose to old Devil Chan. It was an inexplicable, difficult battle that was best avoided. No one noticed Han Li's brow furrowing slightly. He sighed softly to himself.